Hello, livestock friends, and welcome to this edition of Before the Bid. This is a podcast dedicated to the livestock sales industry where we go behind the scenes of the operation and speak straight to the sellers. We discuss topics about the important aspects of their operation, location, the people behind the prep work, and talk about some of the animals that will be offered to you, the prospective buyers. Hopefully, you've got your sale catalog close by. You might have to go look through that pile on your desk. But if not, then you're probably like me and driving down the road or busy with chores around the farm. And that's okay too. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy this segment of Before the Bid. I'm your host, Andy Howell. Welcome, livestock fans, to the second edition on Season 2 of Before the Bid podcast. And on this edition of Before the Bid podcast, I have got yet another one of my favorite Indiana families that's going to join us on this podcast, and a family that they and I go way back to a while ago, and just growing up. I've watched the kids grow up in this Angus cattle breed and been a part of that, and they've been a part of the Angus breed and been junior advisors here in the Indiana Angus, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And again, they run a program, family program, that diversified agriculture. They've got a lot of crop ground. They have had some pigs and been in that program, and they've switched, and now they're more driven towards the cattle, driven towards Angus cattle. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those things and how that all came about. And again, a family that I admire a lot, and I admire what they do. It takes all members of their family to pull this farm off, and all the things that they do, and just a really, really enjoyable family that I'm going to talk to tonight. And actually, we're going to do a first on the podcast. We're going to talk to a father-daughter combination here on the podcast, and they're both going to throw in some things and ideas and talk about the cattle and the operation and how things have moved on. So I'm very excited to have on this edition of Before the Bid podcast the Brock family. I've got David and Katie Brock on here with me for this podcast, and they have an open house sale, their second annual open house sale, and it is going to be held Saturday, September 19th, of course, 2020, and they come to us from Stilesville, Indiana. So I want to welcome them to the podcast, and we've been talking here just a little bit, getting this thing going, and we've been talking about what's everybody's role. And David says that Katie mostly runs the cattle, but she's got a little bit of a different project probably tomorrow because laid some hay down. And so, Dave, it sounds like we're going to have to pull her off of those cattle for just a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah, she's going to have to get up early, get her rinsing done so she can ted the hay, that's for sure.
Probably doing quite a bit of hay with you guys throughout the year, I would imagine.
Yeah, it starts early, and well, this is the last of it today, so we're got to shift focus to the crops here. Here, things are turning quick, so.
Right, David. If you would introduce us to the family here, and then we'll get some background things.
Okay. Well, my name's David. My wife's name's Chris. Andy's our son, and Katie's our daughter. Andy's 23, and Katie's 21. So this is actually Katie's final in December. If we get to go to Louisville, that's going to be Katie's. Or Beef Congress maybe will be her last function as a junior. So we're bittersweet time this year. But yeah, we're running a farm that my grandfather started, and Chris and I were lucky enough to be fortunate enough to buy my grandparents' place and to move in there and raise our family where they raised theirs. So, but we're third generation farm. Dad, he still gets out and helps us, and I used to tell everybody he was always the first one here, but the coffee shop changed hands, and she doesn't open until 7:30. So we're usually got things starting by the time he gets here. So
has to stay just a little bit later to get that coffee down, right?
There you go. Got to get caught up before he starts the day. So
get all the town news right there, huh?
There you go.
Yeah.
His generation's Facebook, I guess.
Right, right, yeah, you're exactly right. And David, take us back just a little bit about what your grandfather started and what he did, and lead us up a little bit to where you are now.
Well, he in 1962 he bought this place, and he'd been farming on the shares his whole life. His dad died early, and so he kind of took that responsibility on as a really a very, very young man, or a adolescent, really. And he was 60 years old before he was actually able to buy a place. And so then he had a lot of cattle and hogs and a little bit of crops, and Dad, he expanded the hogs as he moved into his generation, and we kept expanding the crops, but more. I think he fed just about every bushel of corn we raised. So that was really our thing, or his thing. And I was fortunate enough. We had some cows around, and mainly just scavenged off places that was too rough to farm. But now then, when I got out of college, I had an opportunity to rent a farm with a pretty large cattle herd on it, and that was what I was looking for, was an excuse to get out of that hog barn. So, but the way the hog economies went, that kind of, that was just a step. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was just a step into a different direction. So, but now we've expanded the crops, where they're a big portion of what we do, and then the cattle too. They're, it's all, we try to do it, the volume enough of it to make it pay our time and pay for, pay its own way. So.
Right. And you guys are running everything up there, corn, beans, all of those different commodities, right?
Yes, we do the corn, the beans, and enough hay to feed our cows. We've actually rented a farm here this year, is our first year for it, and they've got turkey barns on it. So we're going to have to get back in the wheat business a little bit, because the litter's got to go when the turkeys go. So, so that's going to be something else, something new for us. And, but yeah, we're trying to, whatever, typical Indiana farm, I'd say. So.
Right. Well, and you've brought both of the young people back, Katie and Andy. They're both a large part of the operation.
Absolutely. We started, Andy, he went to college for a John Deere Service Tech program, and so he kind of takes care of the maintenance on everything, and kind of, every morning nobody's got a job that they're immune to, so we all do whatever needs done, but he's kind of taking over the management of the grain, the crop land, and Katie's more of the cattle, and it's time we need to vaccinate. We need to, we need to get this one synced to breed. Vet's coming to put in embryos this day. We got to get these ready. And so that's kind of her job, right, is to help us and have everything on hand when it's time to go. So that was always when it was time to go, I was always running to get this and running to get what we needed to make it happen. So,
you got two of them that say, "Dad, I need this," and "Dad, I need that,"
yeah.
right?
Right. Well, that's the beauty of a cell phone. I just pull it out of my pocket and call somebody. I don't have to remember to run to the house and call anymore. So.
Right. And I'm sure those two schedules always work out to be just right, and there's no argument on who needs what the fastest, right?
I guess I'm kind of starting to say, I tell Katie, with the open house especially, and breeding, I said, hey, if you need something, you better be getting it, because we're getting ready to get busy. So, right. With the crops. So,
right.
But it always seems like Mother Nature, she gives you opportunities when you're trying to farm trying to dirt farm. She gives you opportunities, rainfall and weather, to get caught up on your cattle work. So.
Right. Right, and let's not forget to mention again and highlight that lady that really runs everything.
Yeah.
Your partner in crime there, Chris.
Yeah.
If people don't know Chris Brock, they really need to get to know her, because she is a one of a kind type of a person.
She's a farm wife taken right out of the 50s. She's right there doing whatever, if it's and really she's the driving force behind all of us and keeps everything straight. And this, if you don't take care of the financial parts when in agriculture, you're not going to last long. And she, does all the book work and keeps track of the embryos and who we've AI'd to, when we turn the bulls in, and on the commercial side, which she's got a list of the cows that run with that bull, and that really has helped her with her freezer beef and doing some of that stuff. So.
Right, yeah, and I didn't even mention the freezer beef side yet, but you guys are starting and running quite a few cattle through in a freezer beef program.
Well, thanks to if there's a good side to COVID, that's really expanded our freezer beef business this year. I think she's 57 or 8 head steers she's taken in and sold mostly in quarters, halves, and wholes, and she's got the appointments. So, if anybody listening here needs an appointment, we'll give her a call. So.
Oh, that's hard to find these days. Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook here.
She seems to run those appointments a year ahead, so.
Oh, wow.
It's hard. Then we got to scramble around to find a calf. So.
Right. Now, David, as I mentioned earlier, you guys didn't always start in the Angus cattle. You kind of came through the commercial cattle, and if you would lead us into how you got more involved in the Angus and breeding more Angus-based cattle.
Okay, well when I rented that farm with the cattle herd on it, there were 90 white-face Hereford cows and 20 baldy bred heifers, mm-hmm. And we were all cow-calf, mm-hmm. And everybody, and at the time, I used to say I'll sell purple ones if that's what brings the money.
Right.
And, but you had to have a black calf, if you were going to sell feeder calf. And so, but the Angus calves, the bulls we got, they calved easy. The calves grew, very trouble-free. And we tried some other things. And, once these EPDs started coming on and, if you watched what you were doing, you could really, like a birth weight or calving ease, that was the main thing I looked for. But I never wanted to be an extreme low birth weight. But the wean weight, yearling weight, those were about the only 3 things I paid any attention to. And, But as the kids got older, they started showing calves. And Andy, I remember that steer. We just weaned the calves and sorted this steer out and seen if we could break him. And that was his first steer. And they got to talking more about purebred, showing some purebred cattle. And that was my excuse was that if we're going to show purebred, we're going to show Angus so we can at least have mama cow someday if we decide to quit. So, mm-hmm. And boy, I tell you, we got involved with the Indiana Angus Association and it's just the junior association, state and national. It's just been a tremendous thing for us. And I think that's part of the driving force of what we're doing with these show calves is trying to give back and to some other kids. And if we can bring them along and for a positive experience, that's what we're all about. So.
Right. And you guys just came right into the junior advisor role just right at the right time, right?
Yeah. Our first, it was the first last time we had junior nationals in Indianapolis. That was our first year, and in fact, Courtney Cates was our senior member. There's three families or the junior advisor team, and she was our senior member, and lo and behold, she didn't have a baby about 2 weeks after that junior national. So during junior national, Kate said during junior national. So uh-huh. that was a learning experience for sure. So
right,
but a great experience. So
yeah, you guys got right in there, and I remember just how active you guys were, and just anything that was needed, you guys were right there, and Chris was right there, and it's never really stopped.
Well, that's it's something you may lose the title, but you really don't lose if you got a heart for it, enjoy it like we did and like most do. It's you want to be a part of it, and it was honestly, we were pretty new to the Indiana Angus Association when we done that, but man, we got to know people, and some of the best friends we've made our Angus people that we've met, Indiana and nationally. It's quite an experience. So.
Right. And raising those young people up through this Angus program, and they didn't just stop with the Angus cattle. They've got a lot of success in FFA things coming up through high schools, and 2 different high schools actually that they had to come up through to get the FFA experience that they wanted, and took the dedication to do those different things. Katie, you want to hit on that just a little bit? We'll get you in here and tell us a little about you and Andy's FFA experience and some of the successes that you guys have had through that.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I want to apologize to any other father-daughter duos who want to do this. We might ruin it for everybody, but anybody else who wants to be on the podcast.
Yeah, you're setting the bar high.
Yeah. So at the time when Andy and I were going through high school, he's a couple years older than me, was 2 grades ahead of me. Our high school that we lived in the district was just getting started on an FFA chapter. And we had both known we wanted to be in the ag industry as we've grown up and kind of come into a profession. So we wanted the best experience we could have with FFA and the best education we could get in high school before we went to college. So we ended up going to Danville, and got fortunate enough to be some of the students from Mr. Hughie at Danville, and he's just a really, really good teacher. And probably anybody listening from Indiana and around the FFA knows who I'm talking about. And that was where we found our best fit. Was going to be taught by Hughie and coached by Hughie in different contests. But so when I was in middle school, Andy was already 2 years ahead of me. He was already planning to go to Danville his junior and senior year. That was the catch. You had to have enough credit where you would have that space in your schedule for travel time and then credits at a different school. And so he went his junior and senior year. I saw him getting ready to do that when I was in middle school, and ended up starting to take some high school classes when I was an 8th grader, with the hopes that I'd be able to get started a little earlier. And I started my sophomore year, and we went over there and just got as involved as we could, still going to 2 different schools. And then it ended up that I transferred my senior year and graduated from Danville there as I was wrapping up.
There was a reason why you did that, correct?
Yeah, I was going through officer elections and ended up my senior year was not elected president of the chapter, and they had asked me in the interview what I was going to do if I was president of the chapter, and I went to a different school, and I had told them that I'd already printed out transfer papers because we were already getting a little friction trying to go back and forth between schools, and some schedules had changed on both ends, and it didn't look like it was going to work out for me to finish something I'd started. And so I had my transfer papers ready to turn in, not depending on how the officer elections went out, just depending on the time I was getting to fill them out and working with those schools on what the transfer procedure, I guess.
Right. And you guys both did CDEs, correct? And were successful in those?
Yep, Andy, he did his soils and livestock. I got a little in some leadership contests as well. What he did an ag mech demo with the guy who ended up being his roommate at Lakeland one year. And then I ended up doing some parley. I did meets and really enjoyed that. Ended up getting to go to Denver for the meets contest out at the National Western. And then did job interview in livestock as well.
Great.
My senior year, I did the job interview contest and ended up winning the state and got to go back to national convention my freshman year at Lakeland and compete in the job interview contest.
Right. And what a great young lady Katie is. If you don't know Katie, you need to meet her, and you will know from her that she is a little bit different than most young ladies growing up in the agriculture world. Just the poise that she has and the way she conducts herself, and you can tell she learned, 1, a lot from home, and then 2, learned a lot coming through that FFA program. Just a great young lady to be around. And you guys went from the commercial, and now you're up over 100 and some Angus cattle, and the young people, Katie and Andy, have been through showing, and you guys have learned a lot through that, and you even took the hog barn, and you did something with one of the hog barns that I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, it was my dad's barn he farrowed in. He had 30 farrowing crates in there on over a pit. It was an 8-foot deep pit.
Mm-hmm.
And we cut doors in it so we could get to it. And then we ended up pumping it out as much as we could. We knocked the floor down into it. And then it was 24 tracks of loads of rock.
Oh, wow.
We filled that up and hung gates. We made a ramp so the skid loader could get down in the pit. That was Andy's job. I told him we had the backer up there too. I said, I'll fish you out if you get too far down in there. But yeah, that was, and you know, this whole thing's just been full of great memories. And that was, you know, everybody's working together to make that barn what they wanted. And we formed up a little place and got a conservation gift of some concrete. So we've made a wash rack inside and done some things. And, you know, for what it is, we're pretty proud of it. So how that barn turned out. So.
Right, and using it for a lot of different things, not only for show cattle, but also for calving cows and things like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, Dad, he had an office in there, but all the water came through there, and so he kept it heated for keep his water thawed, and that's turned out to be a great place to put January calves, and not just show calves, but I mean especially show calves. But you know, that some of them brutal nights, you know, they all doesn't hurt to put them all high and dry. So.
And so you mentioned Katie's last year being a junior and showing it at Louisville and Beef Congress coming up and things like that. And so you guys have decided that you're going to offer some of the cattle that you guys are raising and breeding, and you've gotten, I don't want to say you've gotten away from the Angus, but you've added a little bit of other breeds and other flavors into this Angus herd.
Well, it seems like every generation wants to do a little something of their own. Mm-hmm. And so that was the cattle altogether were mighty different. And as the kids got to showing cattle, like we mentioned, that wanted to do with the Angus. And she's starting to put in some Simmental influence. And that is one thing about the Simmental breed. There is a lot of flexibility with the showing a half blood or being able to register a steer that's maybe not purebred Simmental. So, and so that, you know, to work for the juniors and that kind of thing. So she's been using some of our better cattle, what we consider our better cows, to she's got a steer in this sale that's AI, and then we've also got an embryo calf, half blood. So.
Yeah, and we can we'll get into these sale cattle or open house cattle in just a second. But you guys, one thing I really admire about seeing you guys out and seeing you guys on the show road, you guys are obviously all about these juniors, and one of the things that I really admire about you guys is you guys always have some other young people with you that they're not Brock or they're not family members. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do for some of those juniors? And it's a lot of customer service that you guys do.
Well, I'll speak for first. We're where we live. We're located in the donut counties surrounding Indianapolis, and there's a lot of kids with the desire to show livestock and may not have a place to keep them. So that is something we offer. If need be, we can work out something to keep one here, especially now that the kids are getting past showing themselves. Mm-hmm. That affords us a little more room for that kind of thing. So, and we're not wanting to take over their project, but we are wanting to help them. We'll work out a deal with them where they can stay here and that's something we offer. And then I'm not going to sit here and pretend to say that we know everything about it, but my gosh, we've learned a lot in the last 15 years, and we'd like to, give back a little to all the families that have helped us and want to give back to the next generation and keep this thing going. The agricultural industry, whether it be beef cattle or anything, can't have too many friends, seems like nowadays. So it seems like if you can get a kid or a family involved, they're really, they get a heart for it, and maybe somebody, an advocate for agriculture as well.
Katie might be the youngest member of this family, but I've seen her be a big sister to a lot of young people.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to do some of that, older sister mentoring, if you will, at least trying to keep them on somewhat of the right path or give them a good start anyways.
Right.
I think Dad touched on it. When we were getting started, back a little bit further than before when we were getting started, Dad finished up in 4-H showing cattle just the last few years. He was an actual member, and so he had learned as much as he could in just a few years, and he started Andy and I with that, but then was humble enough and wanted us to have a good experience enough to get us hooked up with people that could teach us and bring us along as well. And I don't think there's, we can say thank you as many times as we want, but I don't think there's any better way to thank them than try to do that for the next group of kids that's coming behind us. And we've got kids that have never had cattle before that are getting started in it, first generation showmen, if you will. And we're just doing our best to start them out, 15 years ahead of where we started.
And I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't even talk about this at all, but do you have some of those people that you remember that helped you guys kind of get to where you are?
Oh, I'm hesitant to start naming names, and I'll start off apologizing if I miss anybody, but the Fry family there in Danville, they really got us started. The Corey and Dad were in 4-H about the same time, and got us started there. Carl Gillette did a lot to help us out more on the Angus side once we got a little more involved in the Angus. In the last few years, the last year, I guess, the heifer that I showed of the cases this last year and then in 19 as well, Tyler and Courtney have taught me more probably than I ever thought I would learn, as I'm technically aging out and not really a 4-H junior anymore and just a junior circuit member. And again, I apologize if I missed anybody.
Yeah, Caitlin Wilson was was Katie's showmanship mentor over the years, and Andy, to me that's the best part about the Angus breed. I mean, we raise great cattle. I'm not going to say we don't, but the people that are involved are just, you become part of a family or a fraternity or whatever you want to call it. When you start, if you bring a calf and bring a calf back the next year, it's it's almost they've adopted you, and for the most part, it's it's just anything you need and willing to answer a question. Sometimes you got to be bold enough to ask the question, but they seem to want to help you out as much as they can. So that's really been inspiring for us to be involved with that kind of an organization. So.
Right. What a great place to raise young people.
Well, I've always kind of told people when they come to look at cattle, I said, we're raising kids here. The cattle's a tool. So, we want everybody to be successful as they can, but that's, the cattle are the tool to help us raise the kids. There's so many lessons to be learned doing this. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and we're gonna let Katie showcase some of those things that she's learned and some of these cattle that she's worked with and you guys have helped breed up to be able to have this second annual fall open house. And again, the open house Saturday, September 19th. And it's from 1 to 5, and I'll let you guys talk about the bid board and things. And again, it is in. They claim to be from Stilesville because they can see Stilesville, but if you're going to look at it on the map or punch it into your phone, you're going to put in Coatesville. So I will. Katie, tell us about these lots that you guys have in here.
We've got for the total, we've got 9 lots in the open house of the show calves, and Dad will talk a little bit more about some stuff we might be doing private treaty on the side, but I'll talk about the show calf side to get us started here. We've got 6 lots that are going to be purebred Angus. We've got 4 heifers for you and 2 steers. And then he's let me put a couple of my Simmentals in as well. I've got a solution heifer and 2 steers that'll show as purebreds here in the state of Indiana.
Start us on that lot 1 and just start down through these cattle.
All right. Well, our lot 1 heifer, the BFAC Bailey 2001. She's an embryo calf that we had out of she's out of Colburn Primo, a bull I don't think I need to talk too much about, especially if you're paying a little bit of attention to the Angus breed and even some of the other breeds that are using Angus influence. But back on her dam, she was a heifer I showed in 2015 that we bought off of the Fosters up there in Michigan. She won her class at Hoosier Beef Congress, was the dam herself did. She was 3rd in her class at the National Western Stock Show during the junior show out there in Denver. A heifer that's been really successful for us. I know on our footnotes of the sale last year, we claim you don't want to make a favorite donor. Your cattle kind of become like your kids. You can't really pick a favorite, but if we did, it would be that Clover, that 925 cow. She's just one of the ones we've had a whole lot of success with, and are really proud of the calves she throws for us. But the lot 1 of herself, she's a February born heifer. I think she's going to be awfully competitive this season. Flush mate to her was reserve champion at the Putnam County Fair, reserve champion Angus heifer that is, and was 2nd in her class at the Hoosier Beef Congress up there. A real competitive heifer for a nice family we've got over there, and we think a lot of her enough that we've made a flush mate lot 2 as well.
So you say the lot 2 is a flush mate of lot 1?
Yep, the lot 2 we decided was we were making our sale order here, or at least putting lot tags in them, that we were just going to lead them off with this flush mate duo that we really like this mating. We're pretty proud of it. So that lot 2 heifer, she's going to be obviously the same mating, a lot of the same stuff I already talked about, except she's a March-born heifer. In our embryo program, we like to run 2 groups. We'll do one in February, and they'll be born in February, and one to be born in March. So this heifer's out of that 2nd group. She's a late March heifer. We think she's awfully pretty. We have been watching this lot 1 heifer grow up all winter long, of course, in spring, and seeing how she's come into herself. And we've been kicking around with each other as we're checking cows, that we think she's awfully good. We think she needs to be in the open house, this, that, and the other. And we got that lot 2 heifer on feed. She's a month behind the Februarys, but she's really come into herself as well. And we think that she ought to be awfully competitive. Same breeding, same lineup, but heifer a little different. She's a little hairier than your February heifer. And she's definitely a little stronger spine, even than their flush mate that showed last year, which we think is going to make them just a tick more successful than the one we had last year.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Yeah, two very nice females to lead that thing off. Yeah. What about your lot 3 female?
Well, if you want to look on our website or at our sale lineup, you'll see she's out of the same donor cow. And like I said, we can't pick a favorite, but she'd definitely be up there. This lot 3 heifer, she's sired by Silvera's GQ, a good style son, and brings that style into her breeding as well. She's a flush mate to, she's a 1904 heifer that was in last year's open house. That heifer was shown by a family here in Hendricks County. They had a really successful summer. She was 2nd in a really, really tough class up at the Indiana preview show, and then went on to be champion Angus heifer and 3rd overall at our Hendricks County Fair this summer. We think she's awfully good. The heifer we had last year that was out of GQ was a little shorter spined, a little less hairy, a little less of that show ring look, at least in my opinion. And I think this one brings a lot of that to the table that her older sister didn't necessarily.
Good deal. Tell us about lot 4.
All right, lot 4, she's a BFAC Lucy 2002. She's going to be out of a Seldom Rest Lucy that Andy showed that same year I showed the Clover cow. That Lucy cow goes back to the Dameron Lucy that's been a been a pretty iconic donor here in the Angus breed. We think she's going to be awfully good for maybe a younger showman. She possesses a really, really docile demeanor. When we've been breaking them, she's been one of the easiest to come around. But with that, she's out of PBF Insight, and he's again another bull. I don't really need to talk about his successes in himself. Her donor was first class, out of first class, and brings packs a lot of punch on the genetic side. We think even if someone isn't necessarily super interested in being competitive in the ring, but wants a good breeding piece, this is the one for you.
That was kind of what I thought of her when I looked at her when you sent me the pictures of her, and looking at her here on the website. We ought to drive them to the website as well, brockfarmsanguscattle.com, and you can go down there and hit the for sale tab, and these cattle are down there. If you're not watching the podcast video, why, you could follow along that way with us. So go right ahead. Keep right on going, Katie.
Yeah. So we'll go into the lot 5. He's one of the, like I said, we've got a couple Angus steers. He's one of them. The other one is a little younger, a little further behind. And we thoroughly believe in if you can't take a good picture, don't post a picture. And that lot 6 steer, we don't have pictures of him yet, but he's coming along really well. Just needs a little more time on feed. And we didn't want to knock him by putting a bad picture on. So that's why, especially if you go through the website, I do know how to number things. There is a lot 6 missing, and it's on purpose. But on the lot 5 that you can see, we think if you're in the market for a pretty competitive Angus steer, and we think he's here in lot 5. He's another GQ son that we've got out of another Dameron first class donor cow we've had around here. This steer, he's pretty wide top, big hips, moderate framed. I think that's an advantage he has over different Angus steers that'll be for sale here in the state. He's still going to have loads of product and performance, but not necessarily that traditional Angus steer that's 1,500 pounds before he gets finished and big framed. We think this one will fit in a little better in a Grand Drive lineup if you can get him there.
He's really nice.
Yeah, and then the lot 6 steer that we don't have pictures of, he is a flush mate to lot 1 and 2. So that Clover Primo, we think he'll come along really good. Just like I said, he was a little greener on picture day and didn't want to hurt him by taking a bad picture of him. And then as you go on down the website, you'll get into the lot 7s. That starts off the Simmental or Simmental Influence division of the sale. This heifer that we're starting off with, she's a half blood. We think will be awfully successful this summer. She's out of that EXAR Queen, is a heifer which is my very first Angus heifer. I showed her my first year in 4-H. She's raised several successful Angus heifers for us, breed champions at our county fair and neighboring county fairs as well. Even the 2012 Reserve Grand Champion female at Hendricks County. More than that, I think it speaks a lot for this cow that she was born in 2008, and I know that dates me a little, that she was my first show heifer, that she was born in 2008, but she's still running around here doing really well, and I think that's something that she can bring that not many of these other show heifers can bring, is a longevity. Some of these other ones, you get them real big boned, and then you end up having some more structure problems with them, but that's not something we see in this family, at least.
You hit on something that I was going to if you didn't. Longevity. You're not that old and haven't been in showing that long. So if you've still got her around, she's still producing ones like this. Why she does. She's got the longevity right there in her, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
We've ended up that cow on herself. I'll brag on my little heifer, I guess, on her mom. She bred her first year while she was bred while we were showing her. Went back to have a calf right away. We showed her in some calf pair classes, and she's not missed a beat since. She's always bred back and have a calf. She's had a few that she's lost for freak reasons, but she's always at least put a calf on the ground for us.
Great.
But this lot 7 heifer, she goes back to load it up. He's again another bull I don't know that I need to talk a lot about. I've got several loaded up, trying to use his influence. I've got a couple heifers here running around on our Simmental side that I really like out of him, and I think that he can bring a lot to a Simmental or to an Angus that we can make a good percentage with and try to melt some of the best of both worlds here.
Mm-hmm. And then you go on to Lot 8 with the loaded up Baldy steer.
Yeah, and he's something that we're pretty proud of. I think I've said a couple of times to some of the families we've had in and out of the barn looking at these ones that I don't think for an Angus girl he's necessarily the worst steer we could have raised.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said in our footnotes on the website, I might be partial to him because of his extra color, but I think he could really be a pretty fun summer for us, for a young showman. This steer is sired by, loaded up, like I said, and his maternal grandsire there is a Dameron First Class back. He's out of the same donor cow that Lot 5 steer is. He's a steer, I mean, just phenomenal wide top, big bone. I think that when you get him fit up and you get him fed for some of these jackpot shows, I think he's one that could be awfully successful for a kid who's wanting to be a little more on the clubby side rather than the Angus side.
Mm-hmm. You know, us young people growing up, and I guess I can't say I'm young people anymore, but I do have a young lady running around here, and she gets to look at a lot of full black Angus cattle, like I'm sure you've done for years and years and years, and you get one of these Blaze faces or something like that, and you kind of fall in love with them, don't you, Katie?
Yeah, you really do. Colin and I joke a lot about we're not fortunate enough to raise a Baldy heifer, so we're going to try to sell this Baldy steer. We're just not that lucky. You've got to buy one if you want a Baldy heifer around here, but that's not just a regular crossbred.
Right. Tell us about this Lot 9.
All right, finishing up the Simmental division in the show calf part of our sale, we've got this, what we call the Maverick steer. His mom, I showed my senior year in 4-H, bought her off the Fosters there in Michigan as they were just getting started into their Simmental side of their fall classic sale. I showed her, she was pretty successful. I was a reserve Simmental heifer over at our county fair, and she was second in her class at Beef Congress. We ran the points with her. Then we, of course, being farmers, we got a little busy in the spring, so she was awfully successful there at the beginning of the point circuit here in Indiana. But Lot 9 himself is out of Bandwagon, who sired the Supreme Champion female at the Badger Kickoff and the Supreme Champion female at the 2018 Minnesota State Fair. He is a maternal sibling to the 2020 Reserve Champion Simmental steer over at Hendricks County. This is a steer. I don't know what I need to do to this donor cow to get her to have a heifer calf. I've tried everything short of letting letting me buy sex semen for her. And we tried that this year, so we'll see if that works. The 2 years she's had a calf for me, she's thrown steers both years, or bulls, I guess. But this steer, I mean, he is just unbelievably structurally sound. She is as well, and I'm pretty awfully sure she gets that from his mom. He's can travel well a lot better. I think that's an advantage he'll have in these shows, especially as they get a little bigger and get a little bit more product on them as you're dragging them around later in the summer. He's a steer I believe will still be able to get around for those judges that are a little more concerned about a structure and wanting to still build good cattle and not just have the look as well. He's still got a lot of expression in his muscle pattern. His maternal brother that showed last year, he was the same way and ended up muscling up pretty well for that young kid that showed him. And I think that this steer will do the same thing. As somebody who's a little more worried about structure and not necessarily concerned about all the pretty, I think this might be the steer for that young kid.
Mm-hmm. This is a real nice rugged, structurally correct steer. You can see looking at his picture there, and I'm sure he's as impressive on foot.
Yeah, we think he is, and we've got him out and comparing these two steers for those buyers that are looking at just steers and for their young people. When a couple of them have asked us, well, honestly, which one do you like better? And Dad and I argue back and forth. I'm a big fan of that Blaze face, and I like the solid black steer plenty as well, but I think that Blaze has got a little more look to him. But, Dad being a commercial cattleman, he does like the structure that the all black steer offers, the stoutness he offers.
You mean fathers and daughters disagree every once in a while? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's the only thing. He is my boss, and that's the only thing we have disagreed about today. So,
well, that's good. That's good. If you guys can be family
today, but that's okay.
Okay. If you guys can be family and him be your boss, and that's the only thing you disagree about, which one's better? Hey, you guys are doing pretty well. So, Katie, tell us how this.
Yeah, we're not getting along too bad.
Yeah, tell us how this open house is going to run. How do you guys do your open house?
So we'll have the calves ready at 1:00. People can come look at them. The way we've got it set up this year is we'll have a bid board. We're going to have a starting bid on them, what we would like to see, kind of a floor, if you will, for these calves. And we'll have buyers or potential buyers get a number. And if they come at 2:00 and want to leave a bid on somebody, then we'll write their number down and put it up on the board. So when those people who come after can know where we're at on these calves and how much they might be worth. And you don't have to hang out all day. We'll get your phone number down, and they're getting into the 4:00 hours as we're starting to close the board at 5 there. We'll start calling if people are getting knocked off and trying to figure out what people are thinking and wanting to do. But you don't need to necessarily hang out all day. You're more than welcome to and come look at them, but know that that's not a commitment you need to make to be here all afternoon. We can give you a call and see what we're thinking as we're closing the board out. But we'll just have all 9 lots up there, their price floor, and everybody, it's going to be open. Everybody can see the bidder number and the price that they're at the time. We won't put names or anything, so we'll remain a little bit anonymous on the buyer side, but enough where it's fair. Everybody can see what's going on throughout the day.
Well, good. And you'd like them to be there and like to have this thing closed down at 5 o'clock and hopefully have your phone calls done and everybody pretty well know where they're at come that 5 o'clock hour, correct?
Ideally. I mean, of course, it's not the end of the world if we're still trying to close stuff up a few minutes after 5. And I honestly kind of hope we are trying to close stuff up
right.
a few minutes after 5. But we would like to be closed just so it comes to a formal close and everybody knows where we're at the end of the day.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Have you learned a little bit? You're having your the second one now. Did you learn a little bit from last year then?
Oh, definitely. We didn't have a bid board necessarily last year. We had posted the calf pedigrees and a little information about them on their gate and just put a price on it. And we had several people, well, we'll come back at the end. Will you be closing out? And we were kind of, if you make your offer at 2:00 and she sells, then she sold the rest of the day, and that's how it goes. And ended up wanting something when we kind of finished up last year and what can we look for next year, for this year, wanting something a little more formal. And something we thought everybody would have a little better understanding of.
Seem to learn a little bit more year after year after year. If these guys are having sales for 20 and 25 years, they still learn.
There's a little growing pains there, but it's all good.
Right. David, she mentioned you might have a little bit of something else going on here during this open house sale that may not involve these cattle.
Yeah, Andy, I've like I said, she touched on it earlier that they took everything I knew about showing cattle in the first 2 years they were involved and started looking at other places for some more advice. So the commercial cattleman in me has always been drawn to more of a production-driven calf. I love these show calves, and I love the family time and the memories we've spent with this show cattle. But I'm starting to think more about maybe getting into some more bulls. With the freezer beef we're selling, starting to pay a little more attention to some of the carcass numbers. When I was buying bulls on the cow-calf side, calving ease, the weaning weight, yearling weight was about the only thing I looked at. And so we're starting to, now that you're starting to see the finished product, starting to get some data, we have all the freezer beef, all the steers we take in, we get grade and yield. and carcass information back on. So we're starting to look more towards the production side of it and the end result, where we're headed. So we've bought some embryos. These 2 lots of embryos were both out of Cowboy Up on the bull side. There was Maple Crest Ava. She's a 3% wing weight, 2% yearling weight, and top 10% on marbling. She's top $5 dollar B. We thought, she was something that fit into what we're doing. We've got more than one heifer out of these flushes, so we're going to have them on display. And if somebody would want to take a look at them or discuss the price on them, we, do a private treaty thing. We've also got some out of a black cap cow. She again, she's top 2% on weaning weight, top 1% on yearling weight, and top 2% on ribeye. So she's top $2 dollar B, top $4 dollar C, and top 5% on dollar W. So, but they also in this, I've learned if you're going to sell purebred cattle in Indiana, if they're not in the front yard, they're around behind the barn, and people see them every day. And so you can't leave the phenotype behind. And I think a lot of these guys you look at some extreme numbered cattle and, oh my, I just don't, it's not something I'm really too interested in. So that's kind of our take on it, is we're trying to bring the phenotype, not saying we're trying to raise a North American or a National Western winner, but we're starting to try to put maybe a more profitable cow together and raise some more some bulls that'll be more useful and more profitable to our bull customers. So, but like I said, we've got a couple of each of these flushes, and we've got a couple bred heifers. I don't know if they'll be on display, but we could go take a look at them. It's like I've learned this a long time ago. There's anything for sale. So,
right.
So you got to stop making some money somewhere along if you get the chance. So, but anyway, yeah, they're going to be on display, and some of our older cows have got pretty nice heifer calves with them, more production based. We're going to try to have them there too, where they can be seen, and another 12-year-old cow in that group, and a 10-year-old cow in that group that's nursing some pretty nice heifer calves out of our Insight herd bull. So, we're trying to just because you clean them up with the bull, you still want to use a good one. So, and really, I don't know that we have any daughters from this bull. They've all sold. So, we probably ought to kind of put a few around behind the barn and hang on to them. But like I said, we're pretty proud of them, and like for at least somebody take a look at them if they want to come by and interested in that sort of thing. So, but they're, they've got a little extra leather on their neck, a little shorter neck, maybe a little more round shape to them. Maybe not the crisp lines of a show heifer, but still very sound and very functional. And really, like I said, we're pretty happy with what we've got out of these two embryo deals, and would like to, if somebody be interested, we'd sure like to show them to them. So.
Good. Yeah. So more cattle to the Brock open house than what's just on the flyer and on the website and things. So it'd be worth the stop to if you're up around Stilesville, Coatesville area, stop in there before September 19th, or if you can't wait, or if you can't stop before, be there on September 19th and see all of these. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything else you guys want to add? Want to throw in anything else we missed before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so, Andy. Just, I want to tell people, don't hesitate to call me or one of the kids, and we'd be glad to talk to you. We'd be glad to show them to you. We've had a little bit of traffic already, but boy, we just, there's that's one of the, like I was touched on earlier, the meeting the people and showing what you got really doesn't. You can have a barn world beater, but it doesn't do you any good if nobody knows you have her. So, we sure take pride in it and like to show them off. So, if you agree with us and interested in one, that's great. And if not, that's fine too. But we welcome anybody to stop and see them. So.
Right. Well, that's great. Yeah. Call David, call Andy, call Katie. You can find some information there again. BrockFarmsAngusCattle.com. They're all over Facebook. All of them have Facebook pages. So look those up and you can get some more information from those. And there is a Brock Farms Angus Cattle Facebook page as well, correct?
Yes. Yep. It seems like we've all got access to make posts on them, but it's normally me that's making the posts on them. Everybody else seems to be driving tractors or doing something else. So.
Yeah, or you guys all have your own personal ones. And if you really need some inspiration, I know that Mama Chris, she puts out a whole lot of really, really good inspirational posts. So if you're interested in that as well as good cattle, right?
Yep, Mama B, as we call her. If you need inspiration or help with anything, you better give her a call because she can probably handle it.
She's quite a deal. Well, guys, I want to thank you for joining me here on the podcast, the first father-daughter duo on the podcast, and what a great family and a great bunch of people that to do this podcast with. And again, just want to invite everybody, Brock Farms, Angus Cattle in Stilesville, Indiana. Again, they're having their second annual fall open house Saturday, September 19th, 2020. From 1 to 5 is when they've got that bid board open, and they're going to be taking those bids and trying to be closing that thing down right there at 5 o'clock. So, David, Katie, really appreciate you guys joining me here for this edition of Before the Bid podcast.
Well, Andy, we really appreciate you having us on and giving us a chance to talk about our calves. And if nothing else, hopefully we haven't ruined it for future duos in the Before the Bid future.
No, set the bar high. You have set the bar high, and it sure has been a joy and been a pleasure of mine.
Well, same with us, Andy. Good to talk to you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Again, make sure you check out the Brock Farms, Stilesville, Coatesville area on Saturday, September 19th. And again, we want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Before the Bid podcast. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Before the Bid. For more information and to learn more about upcoming podcasts and sales, visit us at beforethebid.podbean.com or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram pages. For information on being a guest on Before the Bid, please email us at beforethebid@gmail.com or one of our social media pages. Remember, that's beforethebid@gmail.com. Happy sales to you, and we will talk to you next time on Before the Bid.